See my screen? Right. Well, welcome again to our first webinar series titled Reality, the truth bomb of what your data is screaming, but you're not hearing. I'm Michael Streffery, your host today. I don't like to talk about myself too much, so I'm asking Beatrice to please share my LinkedIn profile in the chat. If you'd like to connect with me, I would love to get to know all of you. I have over 20 years of experience doing diversity, equity, inclusion, employee engagement, and change management for organizations, as well as consulting. So I'd love to connect and network with all of you and tell you just a little bit more about the amazing group that's putting together today's event. I helped found and started the DEI Professionals Transition and Support Group. And what I think is really amazing is what sets this group apart from other webinars is that our group's really not trying to sell you anything. How many webinars have you been to in the last 2 months where it's all sales and marketing people really trying to pitch you to get you to purchase services or products? And so our event today is really made up of our support group members. And we're here because we care. We really care, and we organized the event to bring more visibility to this amazing group of people who've been joining me in the support group. And we really want to drive the story on how DEI will evolve going forward. So if you're interested in joining, our group is for DEI, social impact leaders, ESG leaders as well, who are in transition. We have a lot of people like heads of talent attraction and heads of talent development who are not in DEI or social impact, but they join because they share jobs. They help us with interviewing and reviewing LinkedIn profiles. They do a lot of amazing collaboration. And so if that is you, wonderful. We would love for you to join. Beatrice is going to put a little bit more information for our LinkedIn post into the chat so you can learn more about it. Also, this September, this Thursdays at noon, we have put together this amazing 4-part series designed to speak honest conversations. We're going to be sharing best practices, and together, hopefully through these 4 sessions, we will reimagine the future of workplace inclusion together. Another good thing that really sets apart this webinar series is that we've included a robust survey that hopefully you've completed that'll help us to analyze the current state of DEI in 2025. Today's event specifically will focus on your feedback that you generously shared with all of us. Our next 3 webinars are going to continue the conversation and focus on providing best practice recommendations about how diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace should evolve. So on September 11th, our panelists will speak about how to transform employee resource group programs. On September 18th, we're going to share strategies around the talent lifecycle from sourcing, recruiting, hiring, performance management, succession planning, talent development, so much more. And then finally, on September 25th, we're going to feature the power of how DEI can drive business impact through product and service innovation and to drive inclusion and accessibility for all customers and consumers of your organization. And so to all of you audience members, thank you. Thank you so much for coming today, for supporting us. And we humbly ask for you to support us more by promoting these amazing webinars with everybody within your network. So today, we want you to walk away with the following objectives. As promised, we're going to share insights from the pre-event survey. We're going to expose common DEI myths and real causes of failure. Our subject matter experts will deliver expert perspectives on how DEI should evolve in 2025. And finally, we want each of you to walk away with at least 3 practical ideas on how you can start to evolve DEI at your companies today. And so for our agenda, we're going to start with some important housekeeping. To build a foundation for those of you joining today who are not DEI professionals, I'm also going to share a few minutes about a crucial maturity model on how diversity, equity, inclusion should be evolving in the workplace. And soon, pretty soon, it's going to be my honor to introduce our fabulous panelists, who you can see, they'll wave to you right now, who's going to help me review our survey findings and provide the recommendations on how to move forward with diversity, equity, inclusion through 2025 and beyond. And we're going to do our best, if time permits, at the end of the session to have an open Q&A. So please feel free to share your comments and questions in the chat. And then we're going to be able to close our event. So before we dive in, a few quick notes to set the stage. First, this is a safe space. That means we're going to be bringing honesty, caring, respect, and responsibility into the conversation. We want you to be professional in the comments and chat section, please. Secondly, we ask you to be here now. So please, it brings us joy if you will engage with us in the chat, share your thoughts, and react with your responses. Third, come with a growth mindset. Whether you're a DEI advocate or skeptic, we hope that you leave with something that helps you to grow and be better than you came today. And then finally, let's silence our cynic, seek first to understand, and celebrate wins together. I hope that sounds good. So let's get started. It brings me awesome pleasure to highlight somebody who's volunteering her time to help us today. Behind the scenes, Beatriz Cantara is not only helping us with today's webinar, but will actually be a panelist on next week's discussion about employee resource groups. She today is helping us to manage our chat, organize our Q&A behind the scenes, and I've asked her to respond to questions, highlight important comments, and organize questions for Q&A. So Beatriz, wave to us, and something you shared with us yesterday in our meeting really, really resonated to me. And I can you briefly say hi and share with the audience why participating on this project was important to you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Beatriz Cantata. I use the she pronoun series. As I'm chatting, I'm letting people in. So multitasking at its finest. So when Michael asked me yesterday why this was very meaningful, and really for me, it's building community and staying in community. Job searching is very lonely. So to be able to meet other folks that share the same values and experiences is really sort of life-giving for me. So thank you for the opportunity to be in community with everyone.
Thank you. Now, I talked about giving us that foundational information. There's so today's event, as you know, is a focus on our survey results, and we're going to explain how DEI should evolve going forward. But before we can dive into how we're going to evolve, we need to recognize that not everybody here is a DEI professional, and so to make sure we're all on the same page, I want to introduce this maturity model I created and adapted from other DEI maturity models as a foundation for our discussion. So a maturity model, if you don't know, gives a snapshot of where an organization is on its DEI journey and what progress looks like over time. And so as you move up the maturity model, or the company moves up the maturity model, DEI is going to shift from being more of a mandate to becoming a movement. And honestly, something that your employees are generally going to be part of, be proud of being part of your company. So let's start on the left. We're gonna start at level 1. Organizations who are unaware are often view DEI as a challenge, and many times they do the bare minimum that's only required for EEOC compliance, and it might be considered to be check the box. At level 2, aware, the organization starts some return on investment around diversity, equity, inclusion. So HR may launch initiatives like employee resource groups, though they, oftentimes resemble social clubs more than structured ERGs. But the leader's attitude around DEI is usually, we have to do it, so let's do it. At level 3, the company is invested and it begins to know and understand that diversity equals innovation, and that more than HR needs to be accountable for leading in DEI. Here, your employees will begin to see leaders at multiple levels speaking more confidently about diversity, equity, inclusion efforts and impact. And still, most DEI initiatives are going to fall under either HR or marketing. At level 4, this is where the magic starts to happen. The company's committed and more clearly connects the diversity strategy and is connected to established organization goals or OKRs. So you're going to see that the company is more focused on business impact and has been integrated in multiple areas of the organization beyond HR and marketing. And at level 5, a lot of people say, well, give me some examples of a level 5 company. I could say there's examples of where aspects of a company may be at level 5. But let me know in the chat if you know any companies that you think are level 5. But here the organization's an industry leader and has complete integration of diversity, equity, inclusion at all or most levels within the company. And the company really sees meaningful changes in the services and products that are developed with the company. They start to focus on reaching new customers and consumers in authentic ways. And at this stage would be innovating at such a level that their competitors are trying to copy what they're doing. So it's also important to note that a DEI leader simply can't walk in. I don't walk in with a magic wand and proclaim that my company is invested, committed, aware. So we really need to peel back the onion. So there's a lot of groundwork and collaboration that's required from the diversity team. So we work with collaborating stakeholders to review every area of the company that's open to be analyzed from a DEI lens. And when done properly, a DEI strategy can bring value to drive success for the company through company culture, business innovation, financial impact, and a lot more. So it's also important to note that DEI professionals, like I said, don't have that magic wand. Sometimes this collaboration is well received. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's majorly resisted. And from my experience, I've learned that fairness and inclusion oftentimes requires highlighting scrutiny and accountability, which is not always well received. But by leaning into evidence-based information and following value-based leadership through DEI, that is really where the huge growth happens around diversity, equity, inclusion. I see my camera has turned off, but I'm going to keep going so we don't have to wait for me to fix that. So on this next slide, you're going to see how we peel back the onion even further. So in my own work that I've done consulting or working with companies directly, I have like 86 different areas across the talent acquisition process, from sourcing, recruiting, and hiring and onboarding, where we analyze areas of gaps and opportunities within talent attraction. So here I've highlighted just a few questions that you could consider using to evaluate the accessibility of the interview process at your company. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more peek about what DEI is about and how we can evolve going forward, especially for those of you who might not be diversity professionals with us today. So now we're going to get to the best part of our event today. It's my huge honor to introduce some of our amazing panelists who's joining us. And I'm going to go in alphabetical order here, starting with the amazing Candace Rucker. Candace is the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at KQED with a background spanning tech, public media, and strategic communications. She builds spaces where curiosity fuels connection and culture change is grounded in care, accountability, and imagination. And Candace has led 40+ workshops on topics such as identity and power, inclusive leadership, and conflict competency. She also mentors ERG leaders and champions equitable systems that create lasting impact. Candace has shared that her top strengths are strategy and implementation, brainstorming and innovation, and fair and equitable collaboration. And so, Candace, thank you. Thank you for being part of the project. Thanks for joining us today. Was there anything you'd like to highlight about yourself for the audience that I might have missed? And I will work on fixing my camera while you talk.
Thank you, Michael. And it's so great to be here and speak with you all. Thank you all for joining. Yeah, the only thing I want to clarify is for people who aren't a part of the Northern California or California area, what KQED is, because you might be like, that's a lot of letters. That doesn't make sense. KQED is the public media station, the PBS and NPR affiliates for the Bay Area. So we have a lot of our own content that we produce that is relevant to the Bay Area, as well as, cross content from PBS and NPR. And again, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Next, we have Maisam Ilwi. Maisam has spent the past decade advancing health equity through strategy, education, and supply chain inclusion. She's led DEI programming in rural health, advised FEMA on equitable outreach during emergencies, and launched an award-winning vendor development program that scaled 100 minority-owned businesses. So at Cardinal Health, she expanded diverse supplier spend by 37 million and strengthened performance through training and governance. Recognized nationally as a DEI champion, Maisam credits her Arab American upbringing for her passion for negotiation, strategy, and building community. Maisam's top strengths, she's an equitable community builder, supply chain superstar, and public speaker. Hopefully you're not judging me too much, Maisam. So please, is there something else you'd like to highlight with the audience about yourself?
No, I'm just so honored to be here with not only incredibly talented speakers and panelists, but also everyone here that's decided to take time out of their day and join us today. Thank you so much. And thank you for helping bring on your community members on to join our movement. So that's all I had to say. Thank you so much. I'm excited for today.
Thank you. And there's one thing I want to pause here because I forgot to ask Candace. I'm going to ask both of you the same question real quick. So you've read all the survey results and comments. So start with Candace and then go to Mysam. What's one thing each of you that really stood out from the survey comments that you want to highlight to the audience today? Candace.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So yeah, we got a lot of survey responses and results, and I'm really excited to dive deeper in them with the rest of our amazing panelists throughout this conversation. One of the things that I found the most interesting, both in these results as well as in conversations that I've been having with practitioners and DEI people, and all the things, is the amount of disjointed and siloed systems that we have within our industry, how we're all really trying to get to the same goal, but we're doing at it in really disjointed ways, while simultaneously giving acknowledgement to that DEI is not a one-size-fits-all model. So how do we best effectively do that in tailored ways, but also remaining, jointed?
Mysam.
Uh, I love what Candace said. I think one thing that kept coming up in my brain whenever I was reading the feedback was that diversity was really created. It needed to be created by all for all, right? And that's the true heart of allyship. It's by everyone for everyone. And most of the comments felt like that's what they were trying to get at. That we are all trying to get to the same goal. We just needed something like this platform. And I truly believe that in this current climate, this is just the valley before we hit the peak. And I do believe that the peak will increase on and on when it comes to self-awareness and acknowledgement of one's own perspective when it comes to diversity, but also being accepting of other people's realities and perspectives. And so it was just a feeling that kept coming up of saying diversity really needed to be for all, by all. And I think that that's what we're trying to do here. So happy to dive deeper into the results.
Thank you. Now we have two awesome more people to bring into the conversation. I think I like how I just kind of organically did that. So let's start with Megan. Megan, say your last name for me.
B. Alessio.
Thank you. So Megan's a human resources strategist and culture transformation expert with experience at Pinterest, Gap, and Box. As I'm sorry, I just lost my notes. As founder of her consulting practice, she helps organize design inclusive cultures that drive measurable results. She holds a master's in education and curriculum design and instruction, and lectures on inclusive design at Stanford's D School. What is the D School, Megan?
Design school.
Thank you. and curriculum design and instruction. Megan's award nominated. Patent earning work in innovative inclusion solutions reflects her ability to blend academic expertise with practical impact. Known for her engaging style, she equips collaborators with actionable strategies to strengthen both employee and customer satisfaction. So Megan's strengths: HR strategy, customer impact, and learning and development. So Megan, is there anything else that you'd like to highlight about yourself?
No, I think you did a great job covering that. Let's hear all about Tamika.
Last but never least, we have Tamika Green. Tamika is a culture strategist, leadership coach, and advisor who helps organizations align people's strategy with business outcomes. She's led global initiatives across tech, media, education, and professional services, focusing on engagement, belonging, and organizational effectiveness. And her work includes scaling enterprise programs, coaching senior leaders, and designing frameworks that strengthen culture. She's known for her human-centered approach, and she blends data, insight, and emotional intelligence to drive meaningful change. Tamika holds a BA in Communication Studies from Chapel Hill and serves as a nonprofit board supporting youth and community impact. Tamika shared her strengths as cultural strategist, transformational coach, and a human-centered leader. Tamika, is there anything else you'd like to highlight about yourself?
I'm just really delighted to be here today with everyone. And again, I'm just really passionate about making culture work meaningful both in organizations and within the community. That's what really gives me purpose and gives me energy. And happy to be here today.
Thank you. Megan and Tamika, I want to ask you the same question. So you've read all the survey responses. What's one thing that really stood out to you? We'll start with Megan.
Sure. The thing that I really want to acknowledge and dig in on today is fear. I think we are really operating in a context that is heavily impacted by fear at a lot of different levels. And I think it's important for us to understand psychologically how that impacts individuals and organizations, and for us to think through data-driven strategies for combating that fear and helping people show up in a psychologically safe context. So that's my focus today.
Tamika?
I think for me, what stood out the most was the mix of optimism and fatigue that people are experiencing. That there's still a really strong desire for folks to make workplaces more inclusive and engaging. But also there's some honest frustration about the pace that's happening. And it just really reinforces the importance to me that leaders really need to keep listening and acting with urgency and not just intention. So that's what really stood out for me from the comments and the results that we read.
Some of the comments were pretty wild.
Yeah, pretty intense. So yeah, I'm looking forward to digging in with our esteemed panelists into more of what people are feeling and sharing.
Well, let's get there. So before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank everybody who completed our pre-event survey. We really appreciate the time you took to sharing your thoughts and feedback. We read them all. The purpose of the survey was pretty simple. We wanted to capture real perceptions around DEI in 2025, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And our goal was to better understand the current landscape, where people see programs, where they see challenges, where they see the biggest and largest opportunities that lie for workplace DEI programs to really evolve. And so we welcomed feedback across the spectrum, from those who oppose or are skeptical of DEI to professionals and champions who are deeply invested in the work. And so we honestly believe all the perspectives matter, because together we're going to provide a better picture of how DEI is viewed today and what we can really do to evolve it and make change happen. So you're going to see the results. They're honest and at times conflicting feedback. And I believe that's intentional, because we believe that these insights give us a rare opportunity to really step back and look in the mirror. We're going to use the feedback to guide today's conversation and spark ideas on how DEI professionals and organizations can move forward. And for those of you who have not yet shared your feedback, it isn't too late. Please, Beatrice is going to put the link into the chat for all of you, and you can take our survey. Our next 3 webinars will use your feedback, and that's related to ERG's talent lifecycle and business impact in their conversations. So we're going to go to some of the survey results. So which best describes your current career level? Well, as of last night at 1:30 in the morning, I waited to the last minute to put these slides to get the most updated information. We had 86 respondents of our survey. And as you can see, 26% were executive level, 43% were director level, 15% were managers and people leaders, and 16% were individual contributors. What best describes your most recent engagement with diversity, equity, inclusion? So a vast majority, about 70% of the respondents were DEI professionals, either at the DEI leader or individual contributor level. And about 15% were DEI collaborators, such as talent acquisition, talent development, HR business partners. And a special shout out to the 5% that's never been engaged with DEI. We really appreciate you taking our survey. Which industry do you primarily work in? Clearly, we had a lot of representation from many industries. Tech took the lead at 22%, followed by healthcare and then education. How would you describe your view of DEI in the workplace? Well, we're hoping to get a wide a wide mass of perspectives from skeptics to enthusiasts. So 95% of the survey respondents were supportive or advocates of DEI. Only 5% who participated identified themselves as skeptical or opposed. How would you describe your view of DEI in the workplace? Well, your employer's view of the workplace. So about 56% of the respondents felt that their employer was supportive or a strong advocate, and 27% felt their company was neutral, and 36% shared their employer was skeptical or opposed. So I'm going to pause here for the panel. Before we go any further, any of the results so far that shared stand out to you? Anything surprising from what you expected? Who will kick us off?
I don't think any
Candace,
of
take
us
it
are
away.
surprised.
My son, take it away.
I don't think any of us is surprised. If anything, I'm glad that some people felt comfortable enough letting us know that they're skeptical or opposed, because that proves that, again, we are providing a safe space for them to be skeptical or be honest with us, because the only way out is through some of the issues that we're going through as a society right now.
Anybody else have more to add? Thank you, Mason, for being the courageous leader I know you are.
This is Tamika here. I'm just glad to see that there were a decent amount of DEI collaborators that participated. Very rarely do we get an opportunity to see that there are partners in crime that help us to deepen the mission and purpose of D&I in an organization. So it's great to see that there are folks that are engaged and willing to add their feedback and input into this very important issue and topic. But it just shows that it's not just the D&I person that is involved in this work, that it takes a lot of others, it takes a village. So I'm glad to see that there's other folks that are here and engaged.
Thank you, Tamika. All right, we're going to go to the next part because it gets even better and a little bit juicier and fun. So get your popcorn and tea out. So over the next few slides, we're going to look at some of the notable responses around the question, what opportunities do you believe exist to improve or evolve DEI efforts? Okay, so there were 86 comments in total. We're not going to read them all. We pulled out a few that kind of stood out based on relevance, common themes, and even opposing views. Oftentimes, if I saw like three comments said the same thing, I just picked one that I felt was kind of encompassed the perception of what a lot of people were sharing. Again, about 5% of the responses came from people who expressed opposition to DE&I. And so we felt it was important to include those as well and not to eliminate those whatsoever. Please note, the comments are shared for awareness and discussion. They don't necessarily reflect our own views, but they do give us valuable insight into how DEI is being perceived today. And you know, feedback and communication is a blessing. So after we go through these highlights, we want to share a summary of all 86 comments to give you a better idea of the bigger picture of what we captured after reading all of the comments. So I'm just going to read a couple on each slide. So we need to rebrand ERGs away from being social groups. Too many have bad perceptions of these groups, and they can, in some cases, drive important efforts to the company. Ooh, I see us talking about that in next week's session. Too many DEI professionals are often too much like name removed, a visible political figure. Don't get me wrong, some of them know what they're doing, but far too many are there for performative photo shoots and prioritize efforts that don't drive value or impact. So I removed names. And so this is a political figure who's widely known for taking a lot of pictures in media. Why do we have so many DEI leaders that landed into the role from marketing, communications, and talent acquisition? This demonstrates what organizations really wanted, a poster child instead of real change. Ooh, I want to pass it to Candace to do a couple on the next slide.
You got it. Thanks, Michael. So one of the ones here, we say we spend too much time about inclusive hiring efforts, other HR related processes. We need to highlight examples of how DEI has impacted important innovation in tech, healthcare, construction, manufacturing, education, and beyond. putting perfume on human excrement is not going to change its nature. By definition, certain emoji is still certain emoji, even if you put it in a nice box and tie a bow on it. And how can we take back how DEI has been described and weaponized? Like Michael has said in our support group meetings, plug to join the support group meetings, DEI equals meritocracy. It is our job to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to demonstrate they are the most qualified to get the job. If you believe in meritocracy, then you believe in DEI. And I believe I'm passing it off to Mysum.
Thank you, Candace. The results also state, I'll read the highlighted ones. We have too many selfish people in power. Take what happened at the Coldplay concert with the CEO and CHRO. See what happened with the CEO from Poland who took that hat from a child? Ethics in the workplace is simply disregarded, and the focus is always about profits over people. This is why we are investing so much in technology to replace people. Another comment states, the pendulum will need to swing back sometime. It will be unfortunate that instead of being led out of this, in parentheses, anti-DEI time by courageous leaders, it probably will resurface from a tragedy like George Floyd. Too many people, leaders right now, I wouldn't trust to help Anne Frank. Oof.
Megan.
Sure. So unless the executive leaders of the company really believe that DEI helps to create business impact and value for their employee culture, you are out of luck. Until DEI leaders are actually given access and authority to drive change through accountability, the company does not take DEI seriously. It's very unfortunate that most DEI leadership roles still focus on, quote, ability to influence as a prime qualification. DEI leaders should not have to rely on influence to drive needed change. Another one, well-intended, passionate professionals flooded the space in 2020 following the murder of George Floyd. Many of these people had strengths more in line with social justice and activism rather than organizational transformation. And a final quote here, DEI is still siloed at most organizations and sits within HR. Shifting those structures to where DEI leaders are reporting directly to CEOs and have a literal, not just proverbial seat at the table could make a meaningful change. Very insightful.
Thank you. Tamika, will you kind of summarize what we captured from all of those 86 comments we reviewed?
Quite a few. Well, after reviewing all of the comments, we organized them into key themes that summarize the opportunity our survey respondents see in improving or evolving DEI. So these themes include language and framing, rebranding or evolving the term DEI by focusing more on inclusion, belonging, and human rights, and making sure to clarify definitions beyond just buzzwords. The second theme is integration into business, embedding DEI into operations and strategy rather than siloing it, that Candace mentioned earlier, into HR, tying it to direct business impact and ROI, and making sure that the CEO and executives have accountability as well. The third is accountability and outcomes, shifting from performative efforts towards measurable impact with clear KPIs, OKRs, and making sure that you're getting leadership buy-in. Professionalization of the field, building stronger training pipelines, reducing reliance on underqualified leaders and creating more diverse and specialized teams. Another theme that popped up was innovation and being forward-thinking or future-focused, finding new approaches around and across industries, reimagining ERGs as business drivers and leveraging challenges in the current climate to spark creativity. And finally, culture and education, that making sure that DEI is a part of everyday leadership, that it emphasizes shared values and intersectionality, and making sure that employees are equipped for tough and honest conversations. Michael?
Thank you, Tamika. I want to pause here because that was a lot. And I saw the chat kind of blowing up a little bit. So I want to invite all the panelists. Let's share some thoughts here. So as you know, me personally, I love choose your own adventure. So I'm going to give you some options to choose from. Megan, you're going to kick us off. So you're on deck. So looking at the themes, what resonates with you? Where do you see opportunities? And are there areas where you might disagree or see things differently? And we're going to probably spend 8 minutes on this discussion. So I'll cut us off at the 8-minute time mark. Megan, let's get us started.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there was so much insightful information and commentary that we got from the survey responses. And if you haven't had a chance to reply to it, this is a series and we'd love your additional input. For me, what really stood out is there was one comment that summarized kind of what's been happening over the last 5 years with the resurgence of Black Lives Matter on top of the COVID-19 pandemic, the shift to working from home, the rise of AI, the elimination of so many roles. We are meeting a new moment, and it will be really important for our field and for all of us as DEI professionals or DEI advocates and supporters to evolve our approach with that. So for me, I think a lot about what is our strategic position? How do we realign our message around what it means to utilize DEI as a strategy for future-proofing our companies, for meeting the future that is coming our way, and for really transforming and building up effective, impactful leaders who will be able to drive all of our business goals in an increasingly global economy. So that's something that really excites me and I think is a good place for us to feel hopeful and motivated about realigning our strategy.
Megan, popcorn to whoever you'd like. Candace, Tamika, or Maisa?
Sure, I will popcorn over to Maisa.
Thank you, Megan. One thing that I would add that I didn't see in the feedback, and it was a lot of great perspectives. One thing that I would add is that there's so much change management in the diversity world that I believe was missing. I do agree that we focused a lot on advocacy, on activism post 2020 for good reason. But one thing that a lot of certifications for diversity professionals that we've seen that popped up, and then you saw someone from marketing, for someone from like IT getting the certifications. The core of diversity professionalism is to be a change agent, a positive change agent, and it's hard. You are almost always met with resistance, but I do believe that that's an area where diversity could grow in the future. And I do believe that that's what the key that's missing for the future of our profession and our allies. It's how do you embrace change and how do you start it and how do you face resistance in a very loving and inclusive way, because we've seen how the pendulum can swing all the way to the left. So I will popcorn it over to Tamika.
I think one area that is still new but really needs to be discussed is the role that AI is going to play or is playing in human-centered design in workplaces. I'm sure we've all heard about Workday and other platforms that are being currently used in a lot of organizations to recruit talent to the organization. So what does that mean? And how is that going to change the way that workplaces and their culture is going to evolve? The theory is that AI tools are really helping from a recruitment perspective to reduce bias, but is that really what's happening? And then also, as you build these workforces, culture is no longer tied to a place or to a building anymore, especially for remote first organizations. Culture is in the cloud. Culture is where your employees are. So how is that going to play out as we continue to lean on technology like AI and other evolving competencies around technology? What role is that going to play as we really think about mitigating bias and creating inclusive cultures? I think that that's something that also needs to be addressed as well. So I'll turn it over to Candace for any final comments.
Thank you, Tamika, and thank you to my other two panelists, Maisa and Megan. Really great gems that y'all are dropping here, and it's reflected in the chat as well. I think for me, I'll talk about the thing I have issue with first, and then I'll talk about where I like from the from what we've seen from the survey results and just kind of conversations. One thing in here, and I'm not a part of the ERG group, so Beatriz, don't, take this as much as you want to next week's webinar and session. For me, ERGs positioned as business drivers, that's a big kind of block in my head. And I think it's because, yes, we don't want ERGs to just be social clubs and to just be places where people are like, oh, I have a sense of belonging and I get to plan events and I do all these things. Yes, we want them to be a part and integrated within our organizations in a way that, advocates for mainly themselves and the business. But I don't want it to transition into the business resource group, because that's when it gets too formal and we lose the sense of psychological safety and belonging of that group and why it was founded in the first place. So that's the thing I, want to just kind of put out there and think about. The things that I really am focused on specifically in my role right now as well, is creating that business impact and strategy and implementation of DEI. I think a lot of practitioners that I've talked to, we've all talked about, we need to show the business impact. We need to show what these KPIs are and the ROIs. And I think at certain moments in time, there are people who are like, yes, we're going to track our demographic information, right? We're going to see how many people we have in promotions and hiring and leadership that are of a certain racialized or ethnic background, but that's not movement. That's not a metric of success that indicates that we are doing something right in this work. And I think oftentimes for me, what I want to get deeper in is how do we really show our diverse experiences, our diverse upbringing, all of these kinds of things, because the rest of the stuff will follow, right? Everything else that we are wanting to see in our organizations will follow. But if we focus on how we're, continuously talking about that meritocracy, the skills that we provide, and getting rid of terms like culture fit, because we don't need to fit into something that is probably broken. We want to be a culture add, right? So looking at these types of things in ways that maybe we aren't used to and how things were brought up before, but making sure that we're really strategic in how we think about DEI moving forward, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I will stop there because I think we are probably at time and need to keep going.
Really good comments. Oh my gosh, I could probably go for an hour conversation solely on the differences between social networks, the employee resource groups, and business resource groups, and so I think we'll have a wonderful, robust conversation next week. So hopefully you all join us. I'm going to go back to sharing the screen, and we're going to keep looking at the survey results here. Let's see. So next survey question: why do you believe DEI is under attack in 2025? So from the multiple choice question here, our top selected answer was because political and ideological backlash against DEI, followed by misconceptions and misinformation about DEI. And then third was fatigue and resistance by DEI messaging and political correctness. Tamika, can you do the next slide?
Sure. So I'll just highlight a few. So the first comment, absolutely none of those choices represent my view. DEI is under rightfully attack because it's being exposed for what it is, and you see the emoji. Next comment, at a time when we had the most focus and opportunity to make real lasting change in organizations, we had an influx of individuals moving into corporate DEI roles who had no real expertise in the field. Their messaging and efforts were not solely the reason for the backlash, but they contributed to it. The final comment, I'm not sure if my company is really against DEI or if the executive leaders just have no clue what it is or what they should do. It's hard when a senior leader like the chief people officer is in charge of the program and they're clueless, but they don't admit that they don't know. Very intense comment. So I'll pass it over to Mysam for further comments.
Absolutely. Here's another few tidbits. The powerful don't want to change, don't want change. They want to feel like they are helping without having to put too much effort in. Much like name removed political figure, it is all about their image and playing dress up. It is sad how many women who arose to power but have no appreciation for the efforts that help them to get there. Another comment states companies have burned out their employees to the point that they don't have the energy or mental space to fight for the things they care about, like DE&I. Unfortunately, most people are in a cover your or watch out for yourself mentality. There is not more trust, safety, or loyalty in corporate America. And I will popcorn it over to Megan.
Sure, a couple more. DEI is under attack, obviously due to politics, but has been made vulnerable to being politically weaponized because companies hired too many unqualified DEI leaders who did not know how to do the job. Several DEI leaders actually did things that increased reasons why people have become more and more anti-DEI, which greatly made DEI more vulnerable and devastated the movement. Again, I'm reading the comments, not expressing my own view. First, people are easily manipulated through fear, discrimination, and hate. When people are afraid, they tend to rely on their basic human instincts and tribe mentality. Since job resources have been getting lower and lower, it is easy to scapegoat something that isn't supported by the majority, such as DEI. Dictators know this, and people in power are using this playbook to control the public. And I'll pass over to Candace to round us out.
Thank you. So finalizing some of these comments, as for people who say they support DEI, they have shot themselves in the foot too many times by making small things a major priority. Why did we spend so much time on pronouns? Why do our career pages not look anything like our actual employees? What are our ERGs focused on parties and gatherings instead of bringing more value to the company? Just want to do a book recommendation for that comment. Power Mapping, read it. The second comment, we focused too much on disruption before we had the right amount of authority to drive the change that was needed. There is a big difference in between what people say they want versus what they need. In most cases, leaders in power do not want or appreciate disruption. And I will pass it back to Mysam, I believe.
Thank you. So again, we're back to the emerging categories. Some political and ideological backlash. Many folks believe that DEI is politicized, weaponized, and targeted by the current administration, which, by the way, side note, we have been here before in 2016, but I do ask, why are people so much more vocal? Corporate retreat and performative commitment, that's another category. Companies are dropping DEI programs to play it safe. Again, back to the administration comment. Leadership and accountability category really highlights many unqualified DEI leaders hired post-2020 for racial reckoning. Another category is internal division and fatigue. Employee fatigue or cover your own back culture is on the rise. Perceptions, another category, perceptions of DEI overreach / missteps, criticism of meritocracy being ignored. And finally, continued structural inequities. Supplier diversity is still an uphill battle. As a supplier diversity professional, I can attest to that. Many people still don't know what it is. But we're going to move on to the next slide. And I will popcorn it back to Michael. Oh, you're on mute.
How embarrassing. I even talked about that. So before we discuss the next survey question, is pretty similar to the last. So what do you believe are the main reasons workplace DEI programs may not have succeeded? So the top answer, DEI initiatives were performative. Then lack of sufficient executive support. Third was view that DEI is unnecessary or politically driven. Fourth, that DEI was not a company priority. Fifth was lack of alignment with business impact. Now I'm going to pass it over to Megan.
Sure. At least at the university I worked at, I would say that DEI was never really embraced by leadership, therefore was destined to fail. In order for that big of change to work, it has to come from both the top down and the bottom up. It was such a disappointment to see how quickly leadership caved when name removed, threatened to take away funding if we continued our DEI initiatives. And we've already read that comment, so I won't read it again. Am I popcorning here?
Nah, I'm just gonna go ahead and fly through because I want to get to the discussion. So I'm just gonna read
Yeah.
through these. As someone in a hiring position, I observed that placing emphasis on characters beyond skills and experiences led to the decline in the quality of our hires. DEI efforts often fail due to a combination of insufficient leader commitment, lack of systemic integration, superficial execution, political backlash, and overemphasis on visible demographics. For DEI programs to succeed, organizations must embed equity into their structures, prioritize cognitive and experiential diversity, and sustain long-term data-informed approach, especially in politically sensitive times. I'll read one of these. I think a major downfall was too many people in HR leadership positions, CHRO, head of talent acquisition, head of talent development communications, who were very anti-DEI to begin with. This basically made DEI leadership efforts impossible and obsolete. There was little to no accountability for them to impact DEI because they would only sign up for performative efforts instead of high impact efforts. I'll pick one here. DEI professionals seem to be undermined by passionate people that could be their allies. Instead, it creates tension and lack of movement and support. And so quickly to summarize this, Candace, will you summarize this slide for us, please?
Yes, I'll just go as quickly as possible. So from the comments that we received, these are some of the main buckets that came out, which are leadership failures and lack of accountability. That can look like weaker performative executive sponsorship, leadership changes leading to rollback in DEI initiatives. Then we have lack of resources and strategy, which, as you all heard me talk about, there's no clear goal or strategy or change management framework, just like Mysam said, is really important to have in short-term projects instead of long-term investment, like the comment we read earlier, tokenism and performative action. This is kind of some of the comments we saw of people having poster children instead of doing the actual work. Backlash and politicization. DEI is seen as too political or partisan, and there's pushback from employees, especially from majority groups feeling excluded, which leads us to exclusion and missteps in framing. The overemphasis on certain groups while neglecting others, and over-reliance on identity labels instead of holistic belonging, which leads us to internal DEI field challenges. So the infighting and lack of collaboration, which I talked about with those silos, lack of trainings and standards, failure to connect DEI to measurable business outcomes. And then lastly, external pressures and instability. We've seen a lot of mass layoffs, acquisitions, leadership churn, dismantling DEI programs, and DEI roles have been seen as unstable careers, causing practitioner burnout. Passing it back to Michael, I believe. You're muted, Michael.
Let's go to discussion. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I really, Megan, I'm going to have you kick us off again. So I'm putting you on deck. So based from everything that we shared, we committed to the audience that we're going to walk them through the survey results. We were going to be highly transparent. Hopefully we achieve that. Also, I know some people may need to leave soon. So Beatrice, if you can share the event experience survey so people can fill out what they felt about learning about the survey results or our discussion, I would love that to go ahead and be put into the chat. So my question to the panelists, starting with Megan, based from what was shared, what do you think are the pitfalls DEI professionals should avoid, or the best practices they should look to implement or change to ensure that DEI has a future beyond 2025?
I would say that the biggest pitfall for us to avoid right now is hopelessness. I think that us highlighting some of the sort of more detracting comments is a helpful reality check for a lot of us who, increasingly as our algorithms push us into these kind of homogenous silos to get exposure, right? To what an opposing opinion really looks and feels like is really important for us. And I think that it's also very important for us to remember that this work did not start in 2020, right? We are standing on the shoulders of giants who have been building up this profession, DEI, which goes by so many other names, for decades, right, and generations. And so we have been through challenging moments before. I admit this one is particularly nuanced, but we've been here before, and we have decades of research showing us that DEI is not only a moral imperative, but that it drives business results. And we have the skill, we have the expertise, and we have the history that shows us that we can survive this moment stronger and by adding value to the organizations that we're a part of. I think it's super important for all of us to remember that we need to shape our message to meet not only people exactly where they're at, but to make sense and to add value to the organizations that we're supporting. So that's kind of my rally cry here is take heart, avoid despair, do not lose hope. We have been here before and we can continue this work by getting extra strategic and proving our value yet again. Should I popcorn?
Popcorn away. Pick your favorite person.
I'd love to hear from don't do that. I love all my co-panelists equally. But I'd love to hear from Tamika, so I'll pop.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think one thing that organizations or leaders really need to focus on is making sure that they don't over rely on AI without guardrails. Again, AI is the hottest and latest, greatest thing. There's always going to be the hottest and latest, greatest thing. So assuming that you're using AI in hiring or promotion or engagement tools, so really focusing but not being too over reliant on AI. I think that there's an opportunity to really not forget about the global context. Everything is still US centric, but organizations, customers are global. So really making sure that you're keeping that top of mind as you're thinking about workplace inclusion and belonging. And also, I think one thing that is an advantage is that treat DEI just like, and take it from a tech perspective, borrow from tech, treat it like it's a living system, regularly test and adapt and iterate policies in response to tech advances or court rulings or employee feedback. Don't let it stay stagnant. Treat it just like tech does. Revamp, revise, readapt, adapt as necessary. It's great to have things in place. It makes sense to leave things long enough so you can see the seeds that you plant bear fruit. But nowadays things are moving fast and things are really taking shape, in real time. So make sure that you're treating it like a living system instead of something that's on the side. So I'll pop it over to Candace.
Thank you, and I will try to go as quickly as possible because I know we are very close to time. So yeah, pitfall that I'm seeing, or just kind of we can talk about in general. As human beings, whenever we're faced with stress, with change, with something that's unknown, we always revert back to what we're comfortable with. And I don't want to see that happen with DEI, right? Because this is a time where we need to continue to evolve and innovate. That's kind of the nature of DEI. And as we said at the beginning, right, DEI in and of itself helps people and organizations become innovative. And if we are not doing that ourselves as practitioners or as people who are wanting to carry this work forward, we're not going to see that in the change that we want to see in our workplaces, organizations, or communities. And I'm trying to think of actionable, tangible things that people can walk away with right now. To do that effectively, I think one of the best things you can do is talking to the people, whether they be, in the support group that Michael's put together, like sharing resources. This is a time where we need to uplift each other to our shared goal of wanting to advance DEI in the sense that makes sense for, all of us, right? So that we're including everybody in the conversation. So that's one of the ways that we can do that, joining the group, being in community and conversation, always sharing the resources that we have. I also recommend just talking to your people where you work, or places that you want to work or places that you have worked, and understanding how their perceptions of things. One of the things that I did, I just recently created a strategy for my organization, and I just met with everybody across the organization to figure it out, like what we needed. And one of the biggest things we heard was that, they understood DEI, what that meant at a foundational and a principal level, but they didn't know how to apply it to their particular job, like say in finance, right? It's like, how in finance am I supposed to be equitable when my clients are like internally of the building, they're not external, right? So trying to figure that out. And that's what I'm saying is not a one size fits all model, but we're all laddering up to the same goal of advancing what we're trying to do. So, okay, I will pass it to Mysam. I'm done.
I think one final thing is that, just attending a webinar like this helps us move forward. It's always looking for those different pockets in times of difficulty and change that really propels us forward. So whether it's within your organization or outside, like Michael's group, be active. If something's working within your organization when it comes to DE&I, speak up, because that helps organizations understand what's working. I feel a lot of times we hear what's not working rather than what is, and I think we can redirect our attention to what is working and build on that. And I'm gonna give it to the man of the hour, Michael.
Oh, thank you all. I really appreciate you. And so a lot of you shared wonderful questions in the chat, and Beatrice did actually a good job. She actually moved them to a spreadsheet. We're gonna take those questions and move them to our support group meeting next week, and we're gonna talk about those questions. So if you want to continue the conversation, join the support group, please. I want to also thank all of the panelists, Candace, Tamika, Megan, Mysam. Please, thank you so much for being part of the project. Thank you for being part of the support group. Thank you for being brave, because this was some pretty sensitive information that we shared. And the whole point is we have to be brave leaders to look into the mirror and see how we can be better. What can we do better? How we can evolve DE&I. So Beatrice, if you can share real quickly again the feedback, survey feedback link into the chat. Please fill out our survey. Give us your thoughts and feedback. We're going to use your feedback to improve the rest of our webinar series. Next week, every Thursday at noon Pacific, we have some amazing webinars this month in September. ERGs on September 11th, the talent lifecycle on September 18th, and business innovation and impact on September 25th. Also, if you have any questions specifically, you can email me, michaelstreffery@gmail.com. I'll do my best to get back to everybody. And then thank you, audience, for sharing your time today. We appreciate you. We appreciate you pushing forward the conversation. Know at the end of the day, we're stronger together. And if DEI is going to survive and exist going forward, we have to stay united. The competition amongst DEI people needs to go away. So please join our voices, interlock, and thank you and have a wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.